So this is a really hard thing to do. I didn't realise how incredibly hard it was to record a video, and I'm walking my dogs right now, and I tried several times yesterday to record something, and it would go on and on forever because I've been so angry about the demise of this city and the values of this city, the values of appalling leadership. And now I'm walking through the gay village to try and look at what is the future of this area, but also the future of Manchester, the future of the civic voice, of people being empowered. I think, strangely, it hit me harder than I would ever have imagined when Julia Grant died yesterday, and having spoken to her on the phone when she was last ill. Always found her a really complex and challenging character, pretty much like myself. Not necessarily scared of controversy, not scared of, though hurt by not being popular at times, not scared to challenge the status quo. But for years, the lies that were perpetuated about Julia, that were proven by independent journalists, were perpetuated by the political elite of this city. And I think when I last spoke to her, she never forgave how that damaged her life, how that damaged her reputation. The accusation of theft of tens of thousands of pounds that was said not to go to charity, and then it was proven it did go to charity. She had some extraordinary, vicious allegations about the underbelly of this city, and often it links into politics. People think all these types of threads are extreme. I tell you they're not, because the other day, the ex-editor of Insider Northwest wrote about characters, really nefarious, dangerous characters in property, that he's never been able to talk about. It's the same with me now, and it's another reason I'm leaving this city. There is a lot of danger in these people, and in a way, they're well known, this sort of criminal underbelly, but it's also corporate blue-collar crime. It's that sense of, here we are, let's give ourselves all the procurement biases, let's give ourselves all the property director roles, let's completely break our ethical codes, let's just do what we want to do because we're greedy. And I think what we've seen in Manchester is the worst qualities of leadership for ages, but we're kept in this total state of inertia by very duplicitous promotions of their values, which they don't have. I think nowhere shows it more than the gay village, for me, because this has been my neighbourhood for 22 years, and it's really, really been a place that I grew up. I came to this city not giving a fuck if I lived or died, after being sexually abused, violently abused, having attempted suicide, and really having had such a awful time. And when you come to somewhere exploring, just to take drugs, to party, to try and get over kind of difficult times in your life and discover who you are, it's those businesses in areas like this that kept us safe. And of course, all that investment, all that money they've made from business rates, from rent, from pride, that's never been invested back into this area. It truly, truly appalls me. There's been no incentive. Instead now we have the Portland Village, which was the Portland Village in 4 times in a document that mentioned a car park 54 times, that stupid, deceitful people, leaders, actually made out that I uploaded a fake document to Manchester City Council's website. As you can see, I can barely edit a video, I can't do Excel, I can't do basic things on the computer. These people are so preposterous. Why? Because Stevenson Studio is a subsidiary with the directorship of Ian Simpson. He is a director of that company, and he was just given this opportunity. All these property conglomerates are just to give to their friends, the friendship circles. Again, just to reiterate, 2006, 2008, when people were campaigning for the gay village, because they saw its massive decline, they were upset. They wanted all the same things people wanted today. West Property was being sold this village. They didn't give a damn about any of the values of it. And essentially what happened, luckily because of the financial crash, they went bankrupt. That they were trying to sell out the village then. They never wanted it to survive or endure. When the Friends of the Gay Village recently went and met Sir Richard Leese in the summer, who promised them that a real consultation would happen and this consultation document wouldn't be heard until September. He lied to them. The next day, it was on the agenda for a meeting, and all the silly, conformist, clownish, dishonest little councillors crawl out of the woodworks and say this has been a success because they've been told to. Now, what I hate about Manchester is when I speak to so many people, and I've spoken to a lot of councillors, some I've got respect for, and I think there's some new names that in Labour, outside of Labour, the opposition that's desperately needed. And again, I've got no political allegiance at all because I'm totally politically homeless, and also I'm beyond caring. It's about the values and the integrity of the individual. But when you've got people that will talk to you and actually sit there and slag off the leaders, the culture, and then in public defend these people, I've got to say that's the biggest sense of cowardice that exists in this city. I can understand for businesses, and I've met many businesses across the years who have been intimidated and are fearful about talking out because there'll be consequences for them, whether it was in the transport glut where lots of long-term businesses closed, whether it's people who feel that they can't talk out or there'll be licences impact. And I met people who say yes, their licences were taken away or they were targeted because they criticised. These aren't fanciful things. This is how this city works. We've got a leader who is actually, in terms of leadership, and it's not just him, because people say yes, there could be a part 2 Leese, there could be someone worse than Leese, and you hear the people that are being lined up possibly to take over him. He's clearly going to retire into property positions like Bernstein, who still really controls the city, and I cannot see that Joanne Rooney has ever stepped out of his shadow, because really, him being in Deloitte, him being in Manchester Life Development Company, him being in all these chancellorships, well-paid roles, all the shares that resonate into the city, he's really playing puppet master, and I'm sure, and I don't think it should happen, I think it's so toxic for our culture that if Leese goes and retires into exactly those same roles, but he will do. He's never cared about this area, and I think what was really abusive towards all the campaigners and the memories of people like Julia Grant and all the pioneers of the village that have come and gone, all the businesses that are closed down, that were never assisted, who begged year after year for assistance, for a cultural centre, for an LGBT arts museum. They got nothing back. All the money was just taken out of here and depleted. And I think they see it as prime real estate. But the fatality, and we see it across the city, the fatality of approach is cronyism and interest, the ugliness and the depletedness of their appalling architecture, of everything that they are creating in this city, the ugliness, the hideousness. It all comes from the value of ostracism, because it is not hard to work with communities. You ask them. I mean, look, Mayfield, for example, after we did the Mayfield Imaginarium, one of the many things I've done, and there's so many things I can't talk about in terms of, I'm just never going to get them down in one video. We had no support, but it changed people's perceptions, like the London Road fire station changed people's perceptions. We have had influences, some very small influences on multi-million pound developments. And there are really good developers out there, but they're sometimes restricted and limited and impeded by our council. And there's many developers that I wanted to work with, but they were actively told by elected officials and the planners that they are not allowed to talk with me, they're not allowed to employ me, they're not allowed to work with people like me. And sometimes I've met developers who've had really, really beautiful designs, and they say, Adam, why have you criticised us online? We can understand, but I want you to see the real plans that we had before it was interfered with by the really drab, grey planners of this city, the Roscoes, and they told us we've got to go with this developer and we've got to take out the individuality of this planning application. It's appalling. Who are these disgusting, grey, poisonous people, bureaucrats sitting over the city? I mean, if they had any of the values that they said about, and this is very indicative for me when Adele Douglas, who was a ward councillor in this area, and she was always told she was never allowed to talk to me, and she told me that many times, and she said, like I said to her, we would have got on. She has put different motions through, and in a public meeting she challenged Dave Roscoe recently, and she was forced to apologise on social media for daring to criticise him. It's how this bullying and bulldozing and hierarchy works. If you cannot ask a question of an officer that's failing, that is actually just giving his friends, his children, his associates all the work in this city, it's appalling. I would be disgusted if I was an architect in this city who's truly creative, because you're never, or a good planner or a developer, because you're never really going to have a look in. There are a few extraordinary pioneers because of their clout and wealth, and that's like people like United, you and I, or Capital and Centric. They have broken the rules, but they're still impeded by these people. As for the village, we've got what people describe as porter cabin architecture. Disgusting, absolutely hideous. I'm going to walk there now. And walking by the village, just walking past all the places that are closed over the years that desperately sought for support, it does break my heart, because this is a place of self-discovery. If you cross the road into Chinatown, you look at a place that has never been so damaged, so impeded by crime, by businesses closing, by dissatisfaction. These are places to celebrate. These are communities to celebrate. They're not just to destroy. But that seems Manchester's short-term vision. And I think that short-term vision comes from a complete lack of understanding and dislocation from people. They don't want to talk to people. They don't want to work with communities. The thought of an empowered community, whoever they are, whether it's in Ancoats, Beswick, Didsbury, anywhere across the city, any ward, is something they really truly abhor, because their arrogance makes them think that they understand better than everybody. No, you've got to walk the streets. You've got to talk to the businesses. You've got to talk to the people. It comes back to the value of consultation. I mean, here, these appalling blocks of flats here, that are going to drown out the light and slowly suffocating. The minor impact that we had was to have in campaigning with 2,100 people completing a survey, was to get a tiny square in the middle. I mean, it's going to be drowned out by the light. These are really, really unsatisfactory successes, if you will. But what's very, very disappointing, all these places are promoted across Hong Kong to foreign investors. Some of them aren't even promoted it for Manchester people that even could afford it. Let's not even get into the affordability question. They're just selling this city off by the offshore pound, and they don't care. I mean, what really, really infuriates and angers me is that we've got Sir Richard Leese and Bernstein working with human rights abusers that oppress and torture LGBT people, oppress women, they torture business people, and they're detained in Dubai. They imprison with the sheikhs. The sheikh imprisons journalists with free speech. Well, there's definitely a mirror here. There's definitely a mirror here when Sir Richard Leese said he wanted to control all the headlines on a tweet yesterday. He does. He's an absolute propagandist. He has, I don't know how he's maintained his power and assertion, but he's definitely got it stitched up. Definitely like the incompetent people that are not representative of this area, that have abused so many people like Pat Carney, whether it be in person, online. The stories are shocking. How is this our city? If you don't wake up to these bullies and these thugs. Now, I'm just going to point behind me to this building here. I'm going to try and get it in shot on my Poundland selfie stick. So this building has been empty since I got into the city. I think it was open 1 year as a nightclub. I was probably so wasted, can't even remember being in there. But it was, it's a listed building. It's the first type of this building in the whole of Manchester. It's been sat there, and it was sold in 2016 to another absentee landlord who's obviously going to try and destroy this area. It's sold for £400,000 at auction. And clearly the intent is land banking for a tower eventually. This wasn't even in that appalling strategic regeneration framework that only mentioned lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgendered people once, unlike the car park 54 times. And as we're walking up this road, we see where the family housing is going to be built here. I mean, during Emerogate, this whole area was maligned, demonised. It was the only area of the city that was apparently so violent and disgusting. People like Pat Carney and Kevin Peel at the time came out and said, we think this area should be shut down at 2 or 3 in the morning. Only this area. Why are you demonising this area? There's clearly an asset stripping basis where it's an inconvenience for them to have this prime real estate in this area. The naivety of something like HS2 happening, it's never going to happen. I don't know why they're banking on it. But what Manchester's stupid, appalling leadership does is cut its nose off to spite its face. All the beautiful and potential of all these communities, like that building there, that could have been an art centre, a community centre, an art gallery, a LGBT history museum. No, it's never going to happen. Why? Because these selfish, disgusting people control and own us. They think they're better than us. So when we've got, like, watch this space, own these family housing development here, Bernstein went and appeared on their panel. No matter how much resistance and hatred there was for this plan from the LGBT Foundation, from all the different charities and partners, even the Lord Mayor at the time, it got granted because you have no choice in this city. Not even the elected officials have a choice against the clout of the same names that dominate everything. And so when we get noise complaints in this area, when we get all these bars shut down, when we get all the nightlife and individuality stripped out of this area, what will they have achieved? What will they have achieved? They will have achieved, well, everything that is just so toxic. It's a stripping of culture. Is it because they're embarrassed with the United Arab Emirates that they want a really minimal LGBT community so they can just say that they got it and at prize? Look, a poor homeless person on the street passed out over there. Every day walking through this city is like that. It's so depressing and awful, and you feel powerless. What can you do? But continuing on which literally links into all the social policy here, they try and blame the government. No, Sir Richard Leese and all of his elected officials have lost out tens of millions of pounds of Section 106 money because they grease the palms of developers who are allowed to do whatever they want here. And they're often in the same networks of the same people that they're friends with, that they're selling the city to, that they're on the property directorships with. It is absolutely a disgrace, and I don't see how it can continue like this. All the people that say they have Labour values in this city, who the fuck are you kidding if you allow them to get away with this? Why is there so much discontent in Labour at the moment? I mean, I can't think of a more toxic local party that permits bullying, intimidation, lies, sabotage of people. I have met several campaigners. I've met a campaigner that tried to kill themselves because they were abused so badly in the housing fiasco, where they were trying to protect the homeless and they were sued and taken to court. They've left this country to get away from the amount of abuse that they went through. Fuck you, Manchester City Council, for doing that. You're disgusting. You're pieces of trash and you're criminals, some of you. In my opinion, you know, and I've had the tip-offs from people about your illicit behaviour, but it's got to be proven, and people are too scared to come and speak out. But if it's not that, look at your vision. Look at your vision. This grotty piece of fake concrete building is called world class by a piece of trash city centre spokesperson. It's visionless. It's depleted. How appalling for an inner city main road that this gets granted permission, not with no consultation. You can say that you did a great consultation. You did not do a good consultation for this area. All the businesses that I've spoken to, all the residents, lots of residents didn't even get the letters that you say that you send out. But you don't make, in all these stupid documents, you don't make it clear, you don't make it accessible, you don't want people to have a say. Now here, where I'm standing upon, this is where pride wasn't going to move from. Fake news, fake news, fake news, fake news. Oh, everything's fake news because it's true, because you're trash. I went and spoke to Thompson's Arms manager. He was not even consulted about the closing of his business. I mean, I can't see why a car park can't be dug into the bedrock and have something superior and better here for old age LGBT first care home, for social housing, for a mixture of park, public realm, possibility for people. No, because you won't want that. You'll want the most basic, disgusting car park, the replication of that here, because you have shares, and Manchester City Council has shares in NCP, which is sometimes why you wonder, why is the heritage being destroyed in this city, or the character taken away? Why surface car parks just sit there? It's extraordinary, the visionlessness of these people. Sometimes I've got to question the intentionality. Is it really the nefarious criminality or procurement biases or corruption or cronyism people talk about? Or is it just an absolute dislocation from people? Is it an absolute hostility towards communities of talking to people? Is it being so self-assured that whatever you want to do, however easily you can do it, you can do it? It's the ease, greed and sleaze hypothesis. I mean, we have got some really, really basic people, visionless people, stripping this city. And when I'm leaving to go to Portugal on the 21st of January, I'm just leaving this city so exhausted. And this is why it's been so hard to create this video, because there's so much anger. I think, you know, in memory of Julia, for example, if I'm thinking about everything that she went through, all the abuse that she went through, the denigration of her reputation to advantage the same people, that's the disgusting emphasis that needs to be changed. And in many ways, I've been pushed out, intimidated, hacked. Also, the sort of learning some of the secrets, like I was saying about the journalists earlier, that you can't talk about. It's a massive burden. I feel that I'm betraying a lot of people by walking away, but I know I need to have my life back. This was an area that I've loved, and to see it mistreated is a really big shame for me to see. And it's something I won't forgive or forget. Whether it's Ancoats and the houses that are CPO'd, whether it's the new Northern Gateway, where already people are saying that they're going to be CPO'd and have their houses demolished. People are using powers against these people to get rid of communities, to socially cleanse communities. It's the homogeny, it's the blandification. I see it as a metaphor of a tree almost, where the poison is leaching into the roots. It's grey, it's poisonous, it's a slow seeping poison, it's killing the trunk of the tree. Its branches can't reach out for any potential anymore. The potential of time, the potential of change and difference has been depleted. It has been taken away from so many alternative futures, if you will. And the futures that we are facing come from the same despicable names, the same despicable men that have been in power too long. They are not people who should be trusted anymore. They are people who have really damaged this city in so many different ways. And again, if anyone is actually ever going to watch this video or can listen to this kind of ranting and rambling, which hopefully has some point, you don't have to be an academic urbanist or a psychologist or an urban or town planner to see the fatality of what they are doing here. I'm none of those things in terms of academia, but what has become clear of all the people over the years, 7 devoted years to campaigning I've had, the amount of sabotage and abuse, like I say, is something that campaigners across this city regularly experience. And it's very disappointing. It's very ugly. It's a very ugly reality. And that's what is so appalling about it. But let's take each individual one. What is a consultation? A consultation is accessibly researching people, talking to people, giving them hopes and dreams, and talk about the potential of what their place could be, how their community could be empowered, of taking the money that a council has earned or the profits of events and giving it back to the people. When we got Sir Richard Leese with his £130 million vanity project of all our taxpayers' money, now 40 million direct money from Manchester City Council taxpayers' money. Don't even talk about the Town Hall, Library Walk, all these disgusting vanity projects of his own making. And then they decry austerity. This area could have had so many things put back into it. But no, now he's going to sell more land assets of the city to pay for his ugly temple of hubris. Well, when all the community centres in Bolly Range are shut down, or in Hume, or different places, how is that acceptable? And all you people just sit with these tribal masks and talk about how you give a I don't give a fuck about which political party you represent. We're talking about ethics and standards here, and a lot of you have none of them. The Labour members that actually care about these sorts of things now, you better rise up, and not under a social brand of total dogma or tribalism. You better rise up. Now, what we're looking at in terms of the future of this city is the whispers are Lease is trying to get a successor that will basically be very agreeable or permissible to what he has done and achieved, and so that next property politician. That is the last thing we need as a city now. We don't need in leadership hypocrisy, short-sightedness, arrogance, self-elevation, self-preservation. We don't need people that are such hypocrites with the truth, who are malicious, who are conniving. These are the traits of a lot of these people, in my opinion. We see, when I meet, it's funny, when I've met journalists, how can you be mean to this certain person? Because he's been mean to so many people that I know. They've abused people, like, say, someone like Pat Carney. We went out for a nice dinner with him as a journalist. I'm a journalist and I went out to dinner with him. He was really nice to us. Well, is that really surprising? You should ask how he treats people in Harper Hay, how he treated Julia Grant. We have got some of the most substandard, inadequate people, and we're meant to celebrate them. All they do is jealously guard their position. I have never been a leader. I've been someone who's always had imagination and who's wanted to demand better, some sense of justice, some sense of involvement, some sense of vision for a city that I truly love. And I'm actually heartbroken to feel forced out of it. But I know I need to go on to better things in my life. But when I see the hurt and damage in this city, the exclusion of people, these people cannot be proud of themselves. They can be proud they've damaged a lot of campaigners and damaged a lot of lives to keep their disgusting forms of power and the exclusion of debate. The media can feel happy that they won't cover certain clear stories that are so important to the city and won't do true investigative journalism. They can feel proud about that. They're all a part of the problem. People in this city now need to begin to speak up and speak out. I've never met such a sincere and sort of rebellious people, and I hate going back down to somewhere like, if I go to London or Essex where I was born, that sense of really missing something deep in the soul from people in this city. But what happens, I think, when the low voter turnout is the total apathy. That you can't change something. You really can change something. If someone as small as me has proven even small impacts, and yes, I'm running away, and yes, it is cowardly in some respects, but these people aren't going to steal my life. They're not going to damage me anymore. They are not worth it. They are disgusting human beings. They just damaged a big chunk of so many people's lives, and it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So if we're thinking about leadership for the future, there needs to be a big public debate. There needs to be it can't just be for Labour members to vote in the most Machiavellian, charming, almost dishonest, power-hungry person that presents the best face or keeps things ticking over in the nepotistic or cronyistic networks. It's got to be someone really, really different. It's got to be talking about a leadership which is such a rare quality for so many human beings, and so many leaders and political leaders are totally inadequate. And we're seeing and reaping the rewards of too long leaders who have been in for decades. Even the philosophy of power, no one should be in power that long anywhere. That's so anti-democratic. And to survive with that power, you've got to be really, really cunning. And so I think what really comes home to me is in debates of a collaborative and civic city that really works for people, we're going to need leaders that are authentic, they respect people, they're willing to debate, they're willing to lead and be strong and take difficult decisions. But they're not just out for self. There should be restrictions on property, on property positions or powerful roles. They need to be able to research and communicate with the public. They need to be visionaries. If they're not visionaries, they've got to work with communities in citizens groups. This is such the antithesis of this city. We've suggested, so many people, so many campaigners have suggested so many different models, so many different possibilities. They're all resisted. They're put into very empty, fake consultations, into policy documents that never adhere to anything. They never adhere to their own policies. They're there for paper. They're there to bore people to death. They're there like Dave Roscoe or Julie Roscoe to obfuscate the truth and bore people into submission so that they feel so disenchanted, so disempowered by these hundreds of pages of documents under the pretense that they're consultations that they give in. And that is their success, is technocratic, bureaucratic depletion of the people. I think Manchester, I have never seen it in a sadder state. it is, in so many ways, it feels toxic and doomed to me. There's a really sinister undercurrent. And it's going back to that metaphor of the trees, which are so absent in Manchester, in the grey architecture, the grey sky. We've failed on green architecture, we're failing in placemaking, we're failing in affordable housing, we're failing in representing all the different wards and giving people fair or equitable advantage, because all that is happening is greasing the wheels of the powerful and the political elite, the shitterati, as I like to call them, of this city, the really duplicitous shitterati that are so ugly in their core. And the failure in placemaking, the failure in design, the failure in passion and beauty, it's going to make a very ugly city. Already we see the human consequences of it, and it's heartbreaking to walk through this city now. I've had people die outside my flat who are homeless. I've had the drug addicts break in. I've had really, really difficult situations like the terrorists being in my block of flats, leaving from the Airbnb, and it's been a really, really horrific and awful time at times. Nothing I can't handle. I've lived through far worse than any of those things in my personal life. But it comes to the point where it's more about the attitude in the city from the leadership that are prepared to lie in a public meeting of 300 people, spread lies about me, and I'm not allowed to defend myself. When I went up to Sir Richard Leese at the end of that public meeting about the gay village, I confronted him and I said, how can you lie in front of 300 people? And he goes, what can't you understand, Adam? It's an admin error. I cannot forgive Mr. Disgusting Leese is you've lied in front of a room full of 300 people, and then you've just said to me that you basically have admitted you lied. He clearly wanted to hit me. The thuggery behind that mask of a bully, and I've met so many bullies in my life, and he is definitely one. You can sit there with an artificial mask on. When it cracks, everyone sees what's underneath. Like when you're arrested for beating your stepdaughter, you're trash. You're a disgusting man. You should never have survived in that role. But then I suppose you represent something cultural about power, the ugliness of power, and that's how you're survived. Because I think wider than Manchester, the country is in a crisis of leadership. But nowhere, I think what is entertainingly awful and sometimes so surreal is there's nowhere more inadequate and banal than some of these names. They're so visionless, they're so charmless, they're so unimaginative, they're so short-sighted, they're so grey, they're so greedy. Come on now, Manchester, you deserve better than this. I would love to think, like, if I'm not leaving forever the UK, because I'll probably be forced to come back from Portugal after Brexit or whatever. But if I came back, oh God, I would love to see a change in emphasis. I would love to see people be successful. I mean, the community groups are always infiltrated and lied to in this city. They are always lied to, and they always try and take over people's successes. It's a bit like when Loz Kay, I met him the other day, and he did all the great things for the village, like Safe to Sing and all these campaigns. People then, like Carney, would say, oh yeah, I'm going to ride all the coattails, get all the media, get in the international media. Then he abuses him on Twitter, lies about him on Twitter. These are disgusting people, but they'll probably get elected because, 15 people will turn up in that ward? 15% of people will turn up in that ward, and they'll get in on a few hundred votes because people just are so apathetic with politics. It's toxic. No one wants him in the city centre. Julia Grant despised this man. But we're stuck with these people. And something has got to give. Something has got to give now. So Manchester, please reawaken. Please reawaken, defend yourself. It doesn't have to be about one form of politics, one artificial form of politics. It doesn't have to be about city identity. It's about the integrity of what you believe in as people. It's about being represented. It's about holding your voice strongly. It's about passionately caring about the environment in which you live, to see the potential that the technocrats, the bureaucrats, and the dislocated sources of power and elitism just don't understand. They don't understand you. They're not representing you, and you've got to represent yourself. Yeah, it's sad leaving the city, packing my life up into boxes for a good while. And I doubt sometimes I'll ever return, because I sometimes think if I returned I'd see such an ugliness here. It's been the ugliest place I've known it to be, recently, and I've been very hurt by it. And just in tribute to Julia, so many lies were told about her. Yes, she was a complex character. Yes, she had difficulties in her life, but she was loyal and she fought for people and what she believed in. They besmirched her character, I feel, because she became too powerful in this area. And that threatens them. That threatens them, and they want to destroy that. It's also anyone who comes too close to the truths about this city will be intimidated out. The more people stand together, the more they can discharge. Stop believing their lies, Manchester, and believe in yourself. I love you, Manchester, but I've got to go. Peace out.